Hey church, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for the encouraging text messages. Thank you for your support. And thank you for your prayers in this season in the life of our church. Prodigal Church began in the Bullard High School Theater in the summer of 2017. And what an incredible 9 years it's been. I remember our very first service at Bullard like it was yesterday. And it's been so beautiful to see how God has used our church in the Northwest community all these years. Sunday, May 24th will be our last Sunday in the Bullard Theater, and on the 31st of May, we'll be meeting at our new location in the old $3 movie theater on Villa just south of Shaw. This theater is no longer an active movie theater, and we believe that God has led us here for such a time as this. Now, more information is going to be coming out over the next several weeks, and we look forward to these last couple of Sundays at Bullard with a big celebration on the 24th before we enter this new season in the life of Prodigal Church. We hope you'll join us. I just want to say that I was blown away by your response to last week's news about our upcoming move. There was immediate applause, like excitement for this new season, and your joy really affected me. Okay, we're getting things ready, and I know that many of you have offered to help us, and we're going to be taking you up on that offer as well. Now, next week is our last Sunday at Bullard High School, and we're going to celebrate all that God has done in and through our church these first 9 years. The service will be celebratory. There's no kids ministry next week, as we're going to have everything brought over to the new facility. And so we're going to be having a barbecue after the service. It's going to be a blast. And so I know what I'm going to be speaking about next week, but then there's this week too. And when I began to think of today, I thought of Prodigal's story, and I thought of Israel's story. You see, the people of God wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and the past 40 days has felt a bit like a wilderness for many of us. We may not be in slavery, but we're certainly not in the promised land, and we've been wandering from school to school, theater to theater, church to church, trying to find a home. But then the time came for the first battle to take the promised land. And so this morning, we take a look at the Battle of Jericho. Now take a look at this timeline on your screens. The story takes place right after God's people wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Moses dies at the end of Deuteronomy, and then Joshua, son of Nun, okay, I guess he had no parents, takes over as the leader of Israel. And now it's finally time for them to cross over the Jordan River and to take the promised land. The land that God promised their ancestor Abraham. And so God helps them miraculously cross the Jordan River. Okay, and it's a bit reminiscent of the Exodus that happened 40 years before, because as they cross the Jordan River, it's dry ground. And right when it's time to kick some butt, okay, to take the promised land, God then tells all the men to get circumcised. What? We just crossed the Jordan River. All of the Canaanites know that we're coming. And now we're going to have an extremely debilitating procedure. Every warrior is going to be weak and vulnerable for several days. Okay, circumcision was a sign of God's covenant. And by enacting that painful procedure, it was a way of saying, we believe God will protect us. It isn't about military strategy or their own power. Our God will fight for us. And as we pick up the story in chapter 5 of Joshua, it says this in verse 13. Now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied. "But as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant. Then the commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did so. Now, smack dab in the middle of Israel's violent conquest of Canaan, we see a pre-incarnate Christ. I believe that Joshua ran into Jesus 1,500 years before Jesus shows up in the scene. Now, why do I think this is Jesus? The commander of the Lord's army doesn't reject worship. Okay, if it was an angel, they'd say, no, don't worship me. I'm just an angel. Secondly, the commander says, take off your shoes, for the place you're standing is holy. And this is a reference to the burning bush in Moses' call, where God visits him in the desert of Midian. And then lastly, doesn't it just sound like Jesus? Because if ever there was a time when God should be for his people, it's when his people are going to take the promised land from the bad people. Joshua says, are you for us or for our enemies? And Jesus says, neither. That's such a Jesus thing to say. Okay, Jesus won't be co-opted by anyone, even his own people. Neither. What? We're your people. You rescued us from Pharaoh in Egypt. You gave us your law. You told us to go get the promised land. We know you're on our side. We're the good guys. They're the bad guys. This is so applicable right now in the political climate we find ourselves in the United States. Now, we have some international listeners from all over the world. Perhaps this might apply to you as well, but certainly we all begin to pick sides and demonize the other side, the bad guys. So whether your political climate right now is similar to ours in the States, that doesn't matter. We all do this internally. We all do this socially. Because there's no better drug than being right. Come here. We're right. They're wrong. We employ Jesus as a weapon against those who disagree with us, and we essentially declare, I think you're wrong, and Jesus does too. But let's call this out for what it is. It's a defensive mechanism that keeps us from having to do the real hard work of self-examination. It quickly shuts down the inconvenient possibility that I might be in error or that my own perspective may be warped in some way. It also prevents me from empathizing with my opponent or recognizing any element of truth in his or her position. Because if God agrees with me, then I never have to change. This is arrogant and anti-Jesus. The book of Isaiah declares, his ways are higher than our ways. Ain't that the truth? Okay, I just don't get God. And perhaps that's the point. The day you don't get God may be the first day that you actually get God. Because he doesn't need to consult you. Okay, he doesn't need to run it by you. We often want Jesus to just join our campaign, bless our agenda, defend our position. But let's remember that Jesus is king, not us. We center our lives on him, not the other way around. Jesus never fit into the categories of his day. The people were amazed that he defied the expectations of all the parties of that day. Religious parties, political parties. He exploded boundaries and shows us a better way forward. So when we come to Jesus, we want to know, are you conservative or are you liberal? Are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? Are you Israeli or Iranian? Are you Russian? Are you Ukrainian? Are you for us or are you for our enemies? And Jesus says, neither. The question isn't, which side are you on? The question from Jesus is, are you on my side? Because if your idea of God has never disagreed with you, then I can guarantee you that that's not God. Hey, Joshua, you're not the commander of the army of the Lord. I am. All right, so we're coming out swinging today. Okay, and there's more coming. Okay, let's continue chapter 6. Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one went out, no one came in. Okay, you see, they crossed the Jordan River, and there's a strategic stronghold in the land of Canaan, a fortified city called Jericho. Okay, they have to take Jericho. And that's the first point on your notes, is that Jericho can't be ignored. Jericho has to be dealt with, because if they don't deal with Jericho and they try to bypass it, all that would happen is that they would leave an enemy that will come from behind them and defeat them. It would be a foolish strategy to stay away from Jericho. But it's not an easy task. Hey, Jericho is a walled city. And it's not just walled once, it's walled twice. And the people of Israel have never seen anything like this before. They've never had a foe that is so fortified as Jericho. This must have felt like overwhelming to them. Prodigal Church, there are issues and obstacles, and there are walls in your life and my life. And for a long time, you procrastinated. And you thought that you could just deal with it another day, that you could go around it. And the fact is, you're gonna have to deal with it. Your issues can't be ignored. Your Jericho can't be ignored. It won't go away on its own. Neglecting to deal with Jericho now guarantees failure and defeat in the future for Israel and for us. Okay, great organizations and great people ask these questions. What problems or areas of concern need to be dealt with for us to move forward? We have to deal with the issues in our lives because we think we can just run away from our problems, bypass our problems, and then they're going to go away on their own. No, Jericho has to be dealt with. The secrets in your life, the problems in your marriage, the addictions you struggle with, the pride, the laziness, the anger, the gossip, the bitterness, the arrogance. It has to be dealt with. Because if you don't deal with it today, it will be a bigger problem tomorrow. So no matter how fortified your Jericho is, those walls gotta come down. Verse 2, then the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. God says to Joshua, see, I've delivered Jericho into your hands. And we would respond, I don't see that at all. Okay, it's a double-walled, fortified city that's locked up. The Lord speaks to Joshua as though it's a done deal. Verse 3, march around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Have the whole army give a loud shout. A loud what? Shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse and the army will go up. Everyone straight in. What a terrible plan. Okay, what an awful military strategy. If Joshua was listening to the military general, they would have said, well, you build siege ramps. You take your battering ram to the door. You cut off their water supply. These are the common ways for walled cities to be taken and overthrown in the ancient world. But God gave different orders. Walk around the city the first day and don't say a word. Then go to bed. Next day, same thing. Next day, same thing. And so on. But on the seventh day, march around it 7 times. And on the 7th time, you're going to shout. You're going to what? Shout. Okay, this isn't the library. It's okay. You're going to shout. He says, keep your trap shut until I tell you to shout. Why? Why did they have to be quiet for 6 days? Why couldn't they say a word? Okay, it's a 2-mile walk around Jericho's walls. They can't whisper to the soldier next to them. Why? Well, because if they were allowed to walk around the walled city and then nothing happened, and then the next day nothing happened, you bet they'd start talking. They'd start muttering, complaining. Watch, I bet when we get done, nothing's going to happen again. It's all going to be the same. Just took a stupid walk around a city. They're still going to be up there in a walled city, and we're still going to be down here just taking a walk around it. I bet they think we're crazy. Maybe at first they were scared, but now, they're mocking us as we walk around the walls. Because we're walking, but nothing is happening. See, if they were allowed to talk as they walked, all they would do is talk negative and complain. And they would be talking doubt and fear, and those are not the languages of the people of God. When you speak negative, it's not the language of Jesus. When you speak doubt, it's not the language of God. When you speak complaint, that's not the language we speak. When you speak bitterness, that's not the language of Jesus. If you don't have anything nice to say nothing at all. And that's what Israel did for 7 days. And Joshua and the Israelites did what the Lord commanded. Verse 15. On the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except that on that day, they circled the city 7 times. The 7th time around, when the priest sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. The walls of Jericho fell. How did they fall? Why did they fall? There's been hundreds of theories on how the walls actually fell or why they fell over the last 2 centuries, several centuries. Earthquake? Did angels knock them down? Was it the power of 600,000 soldiers marching in unison? Did the Canaanites dig under the walls to try and escape and then therefore weaken the walls? Did they collapse a part of the wall, as a ruse, but the whole wall collapsed by accident? Was it their voices? Like what happens when 600,000 men say nothing for 6 days and then shout in the power of their voices, after fasted speech? The blast from the force of their vocals was enough to rock the world and perhaps break down the walls? Maybe the whole Hebrew army let out a resounding shout at the same time, and startled by the deviation from the established quiet parade, everyone on the wall jumps, scrambles at the exact moment of the shout, causing an enormous jolt to the structure of the wall. The weight, the sudden jolt in reaction to the shout, it was just more than the poor wall could stand. And so it collapsed under the pressure of so many people standing on it, and simultaneously physically reacting to the shout. It's probably safe to conclude that many inhabitants of the city were killed immediately upon the collapse of the wall. And now the job of the conquest, so much easier. And notice the text says that the walls fell outward, not inward. Often the walls fell inward. City was built upon a hill, walls fell down and out, creating a ramp for the Israelites to march right into the city. You see, the walls which were meant to keep them out become the vehicle that brings them in. Why did the walls come tumbling down? Well, the keys to unlock this mystery are found in what is not supposed to be there. Okay, there are things in this story that don't belong. Things that the early Hebrews would notice right away. And they're all found in verse 4 in God's instructions to the Israelites. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. Okay, these are the 4 things: priests, ram's horns, the ark, and the 7th. Okay, priests leading the march. Priests don't belong in battle. Okay. 2, the ram's horns that are in front of the ark. The ark doesn't belong there. Like, it wasn't allowed to go into battle. Like in 1 Samuel, the Israelites are being routed by the Philistines, and they say to themselves, well, let's bring the ark of the Lord. Let's bring our good luck charm. And then it gets taken away from them. And then ram's horns, like, they were for worship. Trumpets were for warfare. And then it says on the 7th day. 7th day. Does that break any weekly laws that the Hebrews had? Perhaps one of the 10 commandments? Yeah, it breaks the Sabbath. Even if you only walk around once. Like on the Sabbath, you're allowed to go for a walk, a Sabbath day journey, which is roughly 1 mile. But Jericho's walls were 2 miles. And because it was a full week, they were always guaranteed to violate the Sabbath. No matter what day they do this, they're breaking the law. Priests, ark, ram's horns, 7-day march, they don't belong here in this story. And so God says to Joshua, walk around the city 7 days. And on the 7th day, walk around 7 times. And after the 7th time, shout. See any repetition in that? Yeah, 7. Okay, the number 7 means a lot in the Bible. It means completeness. 7s are signposts. Whenever they bunch together like that, it makes you look for completion and rest. God finishes what he starts. Somebody needs to hear that today. Philippians says that he who began a good work in you will carry it to completion. God finishes what he starts. He's always bringing things to completion. He's always fulfilling promises. It was a declaration that God is in charge. 7, 7, 7, 7. God fights our battles for us. Like, this is not the kind of battle where Joshua stands up with his face painted and gives a William Wallace style speech from Braveheart. But dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom? No, it's not that kind of a battle. This is to be Israel's declaration that God is the one we place our trust in. Now, some may trust in swords, some may trust in chariots, but we will trust in the name of our God. Let's modernize that. Some may trust in guns. Some may trust in tanks. But we will trust in the name of our God. Not in our might, not in our swords, not in our fortresses, not in our walls, not in our bank accounts. We fight from victory, not for victory. Notice that the ark, which represents the presence of God, the ram's horns would signify worship. Notice, worship comes first. Some of us, we have a hard time, even in an atmosphere like church, where worship is encouraged. Sometimes we cross our arms, we're bored out of our minds. Because, it's just music, and you want to get to the word, or get to the couch. Okay, I don't know where you worship. You're listening online, you might not be from where we're at. You may not ever come in person. Or you're connected to another faith community in your own location. Okay, this is going to be tough for you. For some of us, the first thing that we have to overcome, is the mockery of our own intellect. Your intellect is going to mock you. You shouldn't engage in worship. Don't raise your hands. What if someone sees you? This is crazy. As crazy as walking around a fortified city 7 times and watching walls fall? No, we let him fight our battles. How do you do that? How do you do that in worship? Well, you bring to him the very thing that needs to come down. And you encircle that thing with prayer. One of my best friends, his name's Aaron. He's been coming with me to Dex's baseball games on Tuesdays and Fridays. And he was recording, and he recorded Dex at a baseball game getting a huge hit, a double. Check it out.
There you go. There you go.
Now, did you hear anything in that video? Or, did you hear anyone in that video in particular? You heard me. You heard a shout. Joshua 6:20, the men gave a loud shout. The men gave a loud what? Shout. A loud what? A loud what? Shout. The reason I'm having you do this is because some of us have lost our shout. You've lost your voice of faith. You've lost that, it's gonna happen. I believe it. You've lost it. Circumstances have taken away your shout. Depression has taken away your shout. Complacency has taken away your shout. Reliance on money has taken away your shout. And it's time to recapture our shout. And so whatever you're doing, wherever you're listening, put on a worship jam that resonates. Or just shout it out to God. Shout out that he fights our battles. So whatever you're going through, people might think you're weird. Shout it out. Encircle that wall in prayer and watch the walls come tumbling down. God, I pray that walls fall down all over the world because of the prayers of your people this week. In Jesus' name, amen. I want to thank you so much for joining us online at Prodigal Church Fresno. We've got one Sunday left in the Bullard High School Theater. That would be Sunday, May 24th, 2026. It's going to be an amazing celebration. We're going to have some food afterwards. We're going to invite you, your family and friends, and then join us on Sunday, May 31st in our new facility on Villa, just south of Shaw, in the old $3 movie theater. We can't wait.